everybody. Welcome back to Football-Oranje, your home of Dutch football. Michael Statham today, and joined by Neil. Neil, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks very much, Michael, for having me on. I'm Neil. I'm from For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast, an Aston Villa podcast, in case you didn't realise from the background behind me. And I'm absolutely delighted to be on. Michael, I've had you on my podcast tons of times. I'm delighted to pop on to Football-Oranje as well, because we often have great conversations about players in the Eredivisie. And yeah, it's great to pop on and chat to you again.
Great to talk to you, Neil. And we are obviously here to talk about the Feyenoord against the Aston Villa game. We are previewing a big week of football for Dutch teams in Europe. We've got 6 teams in action that have made it to the league phase this season. Obviously, got games for Ajax away at Marseille, PSV away at Leverkusen, Brandon against Utrecht, Panathinaikos against Go Ahead Eagles, top that I'm sporting here, Larnaca against RZ in the Conference League. But I think the tie of the round, if you like, from a Dutch football perspective, is certainly Feyenoord against Villa being the glamour tie. Be a great atmosphere in Toulouse. We've got the history of Aston Villa having won their only Champions League back in 1982. They returned to Rotterdam for this massive occasion. I think the game itself is just a league phase game. May not have a massive sway on where both teams go in the competition, but I think two teams that are decent at this Europa League level. We'll talk about final, talk about Villa, and yeah, everyone's happy. So I think from a final perspective, be interested to get your opinion, Neil, looking on the outside. Robin van Persie's come in and has done pretty well as Eredivisie teams go. In the league, he's winning lots of games. He has come under criticism for a few times for his decisions when it comes to, say, the goalkeeper selection, when it comes to his over-attacking football, which is now more balanced nowadays in his 4-3-3 formation. And most recently, he was criticised for completely changing his starting 11 in their first Europa League game in a 1-0 defeat at Braga, to which he answered to the media, well, you asked me where this player was and why this player isn't starting, so I decided to start them all. And look who's laughing now, he sort of said to the media. It was quite, as Dutch people go, even that was quite arrogant. And I think his comments weren't well received by fans. They are disappointed that they're not giving the Europa League a go. So I think for this game, he's going to go back to being full strength. I think we'll see all of those key players start. Ayazi Ueda, the striker that was given a rest, who's the top goal scorer in the Eredivisie so far this season. Anis Haj Musa will be a big threat from the right wing with his dribbling, skills, pace, and great left foot. And I don't see them taking any risks with this. I think they'll go back to a full strength back four, and we'll have a good game in our hands. What's your thoughts on Feyenoord looking in from the outside now?
So Feyenoord, obviously, a fabled team in Dutch football, and I suppose really kind of coming back to where they want to be over the last couple of years, specifically in their division and playing some real meaningful European football again. I love that they've got Robin van Persie in there. I absolutely love it. Robin van Persie is like he's like razor blades one moment and he's like flower petals another moment, and he was like that as a player as well. He had such a great deft touch, but he'd chase somebody back and he'd leave 6 studs in the back of their calf if he needed to, and he seemed to always have that kind of temperament to know when to I suppose when to kind of pull upon all those different kind of emotions that he did have as a footballer, and obviously he played at the top of the game and just incredible. I'll be honest with you, if he was starting for Feyenoord against Aston Villa, I'd be terrified, because he would score an absolute banger against us, because he always scored against Aston Villa. Van Persie just always scored, so hopefully he doesn't teach his strikers how to do that. But I suppose really in recent years, you've seen that a lot of teams, I suppose, in the Eredivisie have had to develop players and sell them on, and it's been a shorter cycle for some of those teams. Like you see it with Ajax, you see it to a lesser degree with PSV, you see it with Feyenoord, and Santiago Jimenez and all those guys that were Feyenoord and not so long ago. They've all moved on to other pastures. Even in this last transfer window, you've got the guy who went to Marseille, whose name I can never pronounce, and was linked with Aston Villa at one stage, and I did a rather embarrassing podcast on him because I could not pronounce his name. Igor something. Pichal. And then you've obviously got the centre half and Hanko and Malambo, Hartman, all those moving to the Premier League as well, Malambo and Hartman. So there's been another exodus for lots of money from Feyenoord. So they're doing something right in their scouting and their academy work. and I think they've bought pretty okay as well. You know, Sam Stein has come in there. You mentioned about the centre forward that's there as well. And this is not going to be an easy game. You know, a lot of Villa fans are looking at the 1-0 loss to Braga and going, "Oh yeah, Feyenoord on the way down again." You know, what's the story? But the context there, as you said, was 11 changes. I didn't know it was 11. I thought it was like 7 or 8. But
Seven
11
changes, yeah, but still.
yeah, it was yeah, he made so many changes, and yeah, they're going to be up for this because they will know the history of Aston Villa coming to the Kop to play there. The scene of Aston Villa's biggest crime, because we robbed, some people say we robbed Bayern Munich that night. But it's yeah, it's very, very fun place, and almost like a spiritual home for an awful lot of Villa fans. And Villa fans visited just because of that night in 1982. So it'll be nice to see that. My co-host for my podcast, Paddy, is going to the game in Rotterdam. I hope I haven't doubted him to his boss, and he hasn't told his boss that he's sick or something. But he is going to that game on Thursday night, and yeah, he's like it's a bucket list thing for him. So big occasion, big game for Aston Villa, and yeah, the one I think that will you know, that will be, I think it'll be a live wire of a game. I really do.
I think it would be different to the last couple of Dutch trips for Villa when they played ours without Marmy. I've got two scars behind me. When Villa played RZ, it was a bit of a rollover, and I think the quality difference told on that night. RZ were a team in transition. And then when they went to Ajax was struggling that season. They were just keen on getting a clean sheet in quite a scrappy game. I don't see it this time, and I don't want to jinx a game, but I think it will be good. And Feyenoord will give it a good go. I think that they will have moments they really put pressure on Villa. Can Villa get away in the counter-attack? They have struggled at times this season with pace and wing play. How can they get through this Feyenoord side that have been quite good defensively, I've got to say, have kept a number of clean sheets, but did have a 3-3 draw at RZ recently to show that maybe they're not quite as tough. Maybe the fixture list was quite kind to them to start the season. But like I say, they probably have the best squad in their Eredivisie this season. They have an embarrassment of riches in midfield. You've got Quentin Timber, who physically is ready for the Premier League and could have got a move this summer. Semstein will score a goal like half the time he plays. His goal scoring record has been that good in the Netherlands.
He's very good player. Very good
player. And I think for Feyenoord, it's what they do with the third midfielder, whether they go Targagin and play someone who's going to be quite defensively minded and win the ball back, or whether they put in Hwang, who's just come back to fitness, who's more creative. But either way, yeah, the great options there. I think the game might be won or lost, I think, with how Villa can get on against Feyenoord's fullbacks. And I think for Feyenoord, it's all going to be about Haj Musa. He is the key down that right wing, final right to right wing against Villa's left back. Is it Martin? Is it Dino that's going to start? Obviously, Villa have got a bit of Dutch interest, and Dutch football fans that listen to this will know Ian Martin. Very good attacking, but defensively, if Feyenoord are quick enough, can catch Villa out in the transition, and Haj Musa will be the key to that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it. So look, Villa haven't had the greatest start to the season this year. I think a lot of people watching this will know, got their first win in the league just at the weekend. They had their first win in any competition against Bologna in the previous round in the Europa League. So Villa have been very slow starters. Been a bit of turmoil in there over the course of the off season. But they're beginning to find their feet. They've got a really good manager, obviously, he's Unai Emery. And the reason I'm building this up is because a lot of I think a lot of the disjointed play that Aston Villa have had this year, specifically in attack, has come from a drop off in their fullbacks, in their attacking play of their fullbacks. Matty Cash has had some games where he's been pretty good. He's had some games where he's been pretty poor. Luca Dean seems to at times have lost that. Like he's obviously, and it's okay for him. He's 33, I think he is now, 32 or 33. You know, he's lost that extra half yard that he was able to maybe shift that ball past players and whip balls into the box. He's crossing from deeper now. He's finding it more difficult to go back and forward. But then when you bring Ian Maatsen in there, as you mentioned, Ian Maatsen positionally in a defensive sense has been really ropey. Really ropey. There's times where I've looked at games and I've gone, where is he? You know, he's nowhere to be found. excuse me. But he did have a good game. I can't remember what game it was, but his last game, I think it was actually against Bologna. He was a lot more sturdy in his defensive work there. I think it's something that he's been shielded an awful lot by Unai Emery. Emery hasn't worked him into the team as much as people would have thought, especially when you spend 37.5 million on a player. And I think because of that, it's a work in progress still on his defending. Like, he's incredible going forward. He's fast as lightning. You know, he's like a cat off a hot tin roof. He's so fast. You know, and he can get to that byline. He can cross the ball in. He scored a couple of goals to the end of last year. At the end of last year, but a defender's job is to defend, and you know, we don't have massive pace in that left hand side in Mings and Torres. So whoever does get down there, and the fact that you said there that the right winger is going to be a pivotal outlet against Bologna, the wingers got a lot of the ball as well, and they crossed the ball in. They did a small bit of damage, albeit we didn't concede. Santiago Castro for Bologna got his head on a couple of balls, hit the crossbar with one. So Villa are going to need to still up their game in the full back positions. The weekend just gone, Villa obviously had a good win against Fulham. I thought the cover that the wingers gave those fullbacks was an awful lot better. Morgan Rogers moved out to the left hand side. Evan Gassand, their 30 million signing in the off season, for somebody who's played predominantly as a striker last year for Nice, he's a hell of a good defender when he plays out in that wing. And I think that it'll be those options, whatever way that Unai Emery sets up, he's found that he probably has to almost protect those fullbacks regardless, but also give them an opportunity, give them people that are skillful enough to that they can get rid of the ball quickly, and then that can progress our forward play as opposed to having to rely on the fullbacks to progress our forward play and then be very good in defensive positioning as well. So it is a slight tweak, and the fact that you mentioned there that the right winger is going to be that focal point has pricked up my interest now, all right, because it could be an area that Villa will have to bend and not break in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he will 100% try to take players on as much as he can. He loves to go to the byline and or get the ball quite deep, hugging the touchline and using his brilliant left foot to do things. But Haj Musa's quite inconsistent within the same game, that he will 1 minute be brilliant, next minute it's hilariously bad, but you know that the quality he has, you don't want to take that risk up against him, because he can dribble, take on 2 or 3 players and still deliver something. That's what makes him so frightening, and also why final fans love him as well and think that without him their chances of winning a game are quite low. That's where Feyenoord have become now. They've kept those players in the team. You know, they sold Peixao, Hansko and the likes, and they haven't replaced them man for man, but what they have done is rely upon those players to step up some more. Couple of new signings in different positions. They lost the goals of Peixao on the left wing, but it's okay because we signed Sam Stein, who was a top goal scorer in the Eredivisie last season, who plays as attacking midfielder. So that's how they've done it. And they spent quite a lot of money for a Dutch team, to be fair. I mean, they spent more than Villa, I think, over the summer. That's not really saying a lot.
40 or 50 million, didn't they? They spent quite a lot, yeah.
Yeah. And that shows what Dutch teams can do now, especially if they can appear in the Champions League every season or two. And they've got that financial power, which they probably didn't have a few years ago. The strength of this Feyenoord side, though, this is like their first big test because they'll play a full strength side. When they were playing Fenerbahce, they had the Mourinho effect for a start. Like, Mourinho always seems to beat Dutch teams. And it was quite a level pegging game. I just wonder how this will translate against Villa. Will we see something similar where they have those attacking moments, but Villa also have that quality, that physicality that Feyenoord don't normally experience in the Premier League? And that's why I can't hedge my bets yet on which way it will go. I can't see a team winning this one by 2 goals or more. I just think it's going to be that kind of a game.
I think the same. Because I don't think that Villa will score two goals or more.
Just have those goals,
I don't think that they will. I don't think they will this year. No. Like a lot of our forward players have been down in their luck. Ollie Watkins scored the weekend, scored a really good goal, but he missed a penalty against Bologna, you know, and it was a badly missed penalty. John McGinn has been the man that's kind of pulled us up by our bootstraps. Captain Fantastic, you know, in the last 2 games, scored that really, really well placed arrowed shot from outside the box against Bologna, and then he scored a cracker, a worm burner, just like it was a perfectly placed shot from outside the box again. Then to get us going in the second half against Fulham at the weekend. But Villa are very much a team that, unless they have that catalyst of something from somewhere at the moment, their formulaic way that they've played over the last 2 years, 2 and a bit years under Unai Emery, is not as apparent as it was last year. Like last year, they played some scintillating football. They go down against Paris Saint Germain, the shackles were off, and they absolutely bossed Paris Saint Germain for like 3 quarters of that game. In the quarterfinals of the Champions League, I watched that aghast. My jaw was on the floor, going, "What? Where's this Aston Villa been?" And there was performances like that last year. Haven't seen that this year. The formula doesn't seem to be as potent as it was. So Villa will look to keep it tight. I think Villa will obviously look in away games. They look to not concede first and foremost. Specifically in Europe, they're going to look to not concede. And then if we can win 1-0, I think that's the way they're going to look at it. But I expect Villa to try and be ball dominant. That's what Unai Emery has wanted Villa to be all season. To the detriment of our best ability, I think, at times. And it'll really be interesting. Villa concede early a lot of the time, and we don't tend to score early. But I think if Villa can start to score early, well, then maybe our fortunes might change, and we might become a small bit more prolific. But we've put ourselves behind the eight ball an awful lot this season, so I definitely don't think it would be more than a one goal swing either way. And to be honest with you, if I was a betting man today, I'd be betting on a draw.
Yeah, me too. I mean, is that your prediction for the game?
Yeah, I'm going to predict the 1-1 draw. I think.
I want to go more interesting and say 2-2, but then I egg on my face and it's a 0-0. So I think there's some entertainment to be had here anyway, regardless. And hope it's an enjoyable one. That's why I picked this one to preview. It's a nice one for Dutch fans to look forward to. A good test of Feyenoord. I think it's one to look forward to. And I think if people aren't that familiar with Feyenoord, then they can look forward to seeing how Haj Musa, Semstein, Quentin Timber get on, and other players besides. They're players that can play at a good level. But it's up to Feyenoord now to step up and show that is the case, that they are the best team in the Eredivisie this season, because they could be. And Van Persie needs to prove himself on the European stage. He only had, I think it was the one game last season as he got knocked out of the Champions League, and even that was quite a promising affair, because they had so many injuries Feyenoord at the time, and still got a good performance out of them. He's got all these good results in the Dutch league. It's just that it got Champions League qualifying, didn't quite make it past Fenerbahce. They were decent at home, struggled away, and then you've got this Braga test where they rotate most of their sides and lose. So no, there's another opportunity now. Can Feyenoord do well in Europe with Van Persie at the helm?
And I think it's probably a fair point to make, and I know that it's obviously more of an effect for Aston Villa because of our financial issues. But I wonder, is the carrot maybe for somebody like Van Persie to go, let's just go win the Eredivisie and get Champions League next year?
Yeah, that's what fans are thinking.
For that money.
Yeah, the Champions League is the most important thing. Can they win the league this year with PSV and Ajax and go for transitional seasons? This is Feyenoord's opportunity. But I also think that they can't go rotating their team every time in the Europa League, because fans will expect more than that. And that is a big pressure to have on a head coach. Someone like Van Persie's shoulders, I think he will need to go full strength in this game at home, try and win these home games in the league stage.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't expect him to rotate in his home games for sure. I certainly don't. And I expect Feyenoord to, like I expect, whether it's naively or not, I expect there'll be quite a few teams in this Europa League this year that might be able to limp their way into the last 16 and then start to kind of maybe then really build from there. But then again, you can't turn it on like a tap. You can't turn on that I suppose the will to win a competition mid-competition, unless you're Mourinho's Chelsea back in the day. Are a team that's littered with star-studded players. So be interesting to see how, like, Unai Emery won't go that way. I don't think. Like, he always has, like, he loves this competition. This is the competition to put him in every sitting room in all of Europe, as a household name. So I would hope, and I would find it really kind of disappointing if if he didn't treat this tournament with the reverence that's needed. But he will also know the reason I brought it up about maybe Van Persie saying the riches of the Champions League are there for us, but if we win the league, we get into the Champions League. If we, if we falter in this league and then we falter in the actual league itself, are we shooting ourselves in the foot? And then we would be forced to sell more players again at the end of next year. And do we not have the financial power then to build upon the players that we've bought this year? So with Aston Villa, certainly it's Unai Emery will see this winning this whole competition because we are betting favourites to win it.
Yeah.
He will see this as the ticket to the Champions League. Whereas I think Van Persie will see winning the league as the ticket to the Champions League, if that makes sense, because he's got a clearer path, I think.
Yeah. Luckily in the Eredivisie, top 2 nowadays will get you a direct ticket into the Champions League. But it's that thing again, isn't it? That winning the league is just coming to so much clout, I guess you could say, in the Netherlands, and so it should. Neil, thank you so much for your time. Let's end this one here because we're on each other's podcasts at the moment. So if you want to listen to us both talk about this game again, you know where to go next for Liverpool Grammar podcast, which is over on YouTube. Thank you so much for coming on again, and here's for the next one. Absolutely,
yeah. Thanks so much, Michael, and keep up with the great stuff you're doing here. I follow football from all over Europe. I sleep very little, and I like to watch talent from all over European football. Scouting is probably my main thing. I like to think I'm a scout, so whenever I've got questions on anybody in the Eredivisie, I come to Mike, and you're a great source of information. So it's brilliant to have an English channel that's focused on the Eredivisie as well. So well done.
Good to know that watching 3 or 4 Eredivisie games every weekend's worth it. Thanks everyone for watching. If you're new here, subscribe. If you enjoyed it, press like, and let us know down below what you think the score will be for this one, Feyenoord against Aston Villa. Cheers, everyone.